Well, hi there, everyone. This is Scott Nicholson, and here I am at the end of day 2 of GDC, the Game Developers Conference. What I wanted to show you, actually, behind me here, we have the board of activities. This is the conference at a glance. These are just the activities for today. Now, today is the second day of summits and tutorials, meaning today was not the trade show part of GDC. Again, it was more talks and tutorials and things like that. There's going to be 20,000 people that are here, and so this is a pretty big event. And so you can see here, if you want to wander through and you can have tutorials on all sorts of things, audio boot camp, game dev startup. I chose to go into the level design in a day. I thought that would be interesting for me. Because typically, we don't think of board games as episodic. We don't think about it like you think about a level. I thought it'd be interesting to see what was there, and I got a few interesting takeaways. One of them is the concept of a distributed narrative. So rather than front-loading the player with a whole bunch of story, one thing you can do is split up that story into lots of little pieces. They describe the concept of a lake. And so that no matter where you dipped your toe in, you got some of the story and allowed you to engage with other parts of the story. And I think, what if we did that in board games? What if we did it so that you didn't say at the beginning of the game, hey, here's all of the story, because as soon as you hear that, you're like, get on with the game. But rather, put little bits of the story in there, so that you had to actually engage with those little bits of the story to explore the game. I know some games do that, like Arkham Horror and things like that, where you have little bits of the narrative on the cards, but again, people just go, and I think, what about some way of actually engaging the player more deeply with that narrative by having game mechanisms that tie you into that narrative? A lot of things like you do in some of the historical games, and so that was an interesting thought. Another one was about the balance between the designer telling the story and the player having control over the story. What I mean by that, it was interesting that they talked about in level design how sometimes you put the level on rails where the player's going to have a series of experiences and you're controlling those experiences they're going to have. But other times you can allow the player to make choices about where they have experiences or about how those experiences are done, allowing the player to decide what kind of game experience they're going to have. So World of Warcraft, for example, big world, the player can engage in things as they want, as compared to a rail shooter where you're seeing a series of things and you're engaging with them. And I thought, well, what is the equivalent to that in the board game world? Where is it in the board game world? Do we have these fixed series of choices? Sometimes in board games you'll engage with one strategy, and if you do that, that means you're going to be doing this, then this, then this, and this, and this, all the way through it. As compared to giving the players a big space to go and explore. I think that Dominion has a lot of player choice. It gives you a lot of that player narrative that you get to create. And I wonder if that's why it's so attractive, because you feel you're really creating your own narrative as compared to being forced into a sets of choices. I'm not sure. I have to think about that. This is something that's going to keep me processing and saying, And one of the other concepts is the idea of how to create a memorable level. And they said the way to do that is you have a dominant feature that runs throughout the level. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. This actually may be why the Franken games that are out there, where you have 7,000 mechanisms all bubbling up together, but no one dominant mechanism that everything's falling into, end up being not very memorable when you play them. And games that do have a dominant mechanism or a dominant aspect, my fingers get really big, don't they? I'm crushing your head. Sorry, it's been a long day. But the idea that if you have a dominant aspect in the game, and then every other mechanism, every other choice all feeds into that aspect, then you can create gaming experiences that are more memorable. I think that's interesting. The afternoon, then I went to the summit on Games for Change. Now, Games for Change, it's a movement about using games that make a difference. And this was interesting. There was a spectrum of things back and forth. One of the speakers was actually Ian Livingstone, who was one of the founders of Games Workshop, but he was more talking about what he'd been doing with Games for Change in the UK. But a lot of talking about how you get people to either play or create games that can make a difference. And, I'm talking a lot about gamification. And it was nice, in contrast to yesterday's panel by the social media people who are all about money, 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 that these folks are really all about making a difference. Now, some of them did have some aspects of money, money, money running throughout the demonstration. One demonstration showing a game that you could make purchases within the game that would benefit charities. And I was thinking, I wonder how much of that money actually goes to the charity, how much goes to the game company, but anyway, there was some good stuff there, and a lot of stuff I'm going to have to chew on. But as I work more and more with gamification, I'm going to be exploring different ways that games can really change minds, and that's what I'm at here, is helping to create games that change minds. So that was my afternoon. I'm exhausted. Tomorrow things change a little bit, and we're going to be moving into more of a trade show experience. There are still some talks, and in fact, one of the talks I'm looking the most forward to is by Sid Meier, and he's going to give a talk on interesting decisions. And I bet you that's going to be very interesting coming from a board game perspective. So I'm going to go have a nap. I hope things are all going well for you out there, and I will talk to you later. This is Scott from GDC San Francisco 2012. Take care. Bye-bye.